Hello, I'm doing the historical background on women's rights. 150 years ago, women had few rights. They were excluded from universities and professional schools. They could not vote or run for political office. Typically, working-class women worked beside their husbands on the farm or in factories. Middle-class women stayed home to take care of their husbands and children. In the 1800s, attitudes towards women began to change. The first women to fight for the right to vote were disapproved on because they challenged old laws and cultural normalities. The first suffrage organization was established by Dr. Emily Stowe in 1876. It was called the Toronto Women's Literary Club. Another suffrage organization, called the Winnipeg Equality League, was established in 1912 by Nellie McClung. She and others fought the legal system for the right to vote. However, it wasn't until 1916 that Manitoba became the first province to give women the right to vote. The rest of Canada quickly followed Manitoba's decision. World War I was a turning point for women's rights. While men were fighting overseas, thousands of women took up jobs on farms and in factories. However, when the war ended, Canadian men returned home and reclaimed their jobs, and the majority of women returned to their traditional roles at home. In 1921, a law was passed regulating that married women couldn't hold a position in government unless they had no financial support from their husband. Women had to quit their jobs when they got married, except if there was no man to fill the position. Women felt as though they only had rights and freedoms when they were needed. Additionally, in the same year, Agnes MacPhail was the first woman elected to the House of Commons. Although women could be elected, there was still many more men being elected than women. Next, I'm going to talk about the Persons Case. Prior to 1929, women were not considered persons under the law, meaning they could not sit in the Canadian Senate or become senators. The Persons Case changed this law. The famous five, Nellie McClung, Emily Murphy, Eileen Parberly, Henrietta Edwards, and Louise McKinney, fought to determine whether or not person included women. In 1928, it was determined by the Supreme Court of Canada that person only applied to men. The famous five then fought to change this so that women could hold an appointed office. During World War II, 45,000 women joined the military. However, they were not allowed to fight in combat roles. They held roles as nurses, drivers, or radio technicians. They were also paid 20% less than men who held the same roles. Over 1 million women also entered the workforce. However, when the war ended, they were faced with the same attitudes as after the First World War. 75% of men and 68% of women felt that men should be hired over women. This inequality wasn't fully addressed until 1964 when the Civil Rights Act was passed and prohibited employment discrimination based on sex. Within the first 5 years, there was over 50,000 sex discrimination complaints. Although women's rights have come a long way since having only minimal rights, there is still much to improve.